Wood's a natural substance, and it varies, you know, with the grain, the type of wood, and if you've been turning at all, or if you start turning, you're going to find out sooner or later, somewhere along the line, you're either going to have a piece of wood that you haven't started on, or a piece of wood you've been turning on that's got some cracks or voids or imperfections in it that you've got to decide what to do with. I'm going to show you how to deal with some of those in this video and share you some of my thoughts on when to hold them and when to fold them. Hi, I'm Mike Peace of Mike Peace Woodturning, and I'm passionate about wood turning. I just love it, and I want to share that passion with you and help you with tips, tricks, and techniques that'll help you become a better wood turner. I think every wood turner's got a little different perspective on it, and some of it depends on their experience, some of it depends on their skill level, some of it depends on their patience as to where they how they're going to deal with solving some of these imperfections or features in a piece of wood. I think some turners, especially new turners, tend to feel like that the wood has defeated them if they give up without finishing the piece, and that's not necessarily true. Let me go through some questions that I go through when I'm analyzing a piece, when I'm trying to decide what to do with it. The first question I ask myself is, does it need fixing? Is it a feature in the wood that will look fine just the way it is? Here's an example of what I'd call a feature in this natural lead bowl, a hole that goes all the way through. I wouldn't have begun to repair this. It's just too big, and as an art piece, I just don't see it as an issue leaving it as is, where if I tried to fill it in, I think it would look very bad. Here's a small box I was turning, and as I was getting near the final stages, a little segment popped out of it, and I just don't consider this to be a major issue on this little bowl. Been very difficult to repair it since it's a through hole. Will leaving it the way it is make it look better, or will fixing it make it look worse? Will the finished item that I've repaired look like a reject when I'm through, or if I don't repair it, will it look crude or rough? Or here's another example of a piece. It was a beautiful piece of spalted dogwood that had this bit of a bark inclusion on the left-hand side. I could have filled it in, but I just did not feel like I felt like leaving it natural would have was a better look than trying to repair it. Someone else could have been successful repairing it. Just it wasn't worth it to me. Punky wood. Sometimes I think it's like the sirens calling us to the shoals to crash. Spalting is beautiful, but if it's gone too far, it's soft. It's going to be very, very difficult to get clean cuts on it. There's a couple of ways to deal with it. Number one, look for a better piece, and there's always more spalted wood around. If it's only in a few small spots, there's a few ways to deal with it. One is Minwax wood hardener. It's not a cheap solution. Some folks have had success by mixing down wood glue 50-50, carpenter's glue, and brushing it in. CA glue only for small cracks. If the wood is punky, I wouldn't use it. It's going to take too much. It's going to cost you a fortune. It's going to smell up your shop and tend to cause you problems breathing that cyanide. Stabilizing for small pieces is certainly an option. It's not an inexpensive option. Here's a Bradford pear funeral urn I made, and it had a knot growing out of the side, which made for a lot of figure, and I had to fill in that knot to try to somewhat uniform surface, and I used ebony dust and CA glue and then sanded it, and of course when I dyed it, it pretty well, if not disguised it, at least it blended in well. If I go through the bottom of a bowl and add a different color piece of wood to the bottom, won't it still look like a patch? And if it's got a patch, would I truly want to give it away, or could I sell it? Now here's an example of a little hollow form that I was doing, and I went through the bottom and I just repurposed it. I turned it upside down. I put a small plug in it that you can't really notice on the bottom, and changed ends and turned it into a vase. I think all of these thoughts that I have are tempered on what's the nature of the piece of wood. If it has a particular historical or cultural, or there's an emotional attachment to it, say a tree that, a piece of wood that came down from a tree in someone's yard where they're emotionally attached to it, then I might vary my views a little bit in trying to deal with that piece of wood. Here are a couple of pictures of patches done by my friend Emiliano Acaval in Maui. These are modern day patches which simulate the kind of bowl repairs done by Hawaiians to vessels they considered sacred or family heirlooms. Another question I have is, will the repair hold up over time? Wood moves, and is there a possibility that it's going to open up again or become, a serious problem? If it's a major imperfection on the rim, I would never tolerate a repair on a salad bowl that's going to get constant use. If it's an art piece or something that'll get no use sitting on a shelf, that might be a little different on repairing something on the rim. Here's a rough turned bowl of ash that's it had a branch or something, a bark inclusion near the pith that caused this opening. It's not, when I finish turning it, it's going to come down a little bit. I think I can repair that. I'm not concerned about it being structural. It goes too deep that it's going to be a danger. If I was going to eat out of it or is it constant use, I'd be concerned about the crack on the rib. But as an art piece, I think I can fix it. We'll see. Okay, here we've got a rough turned ash bowl, enclosed surface. We've got a little hairline crack here. We've got a hairline crack here, here, and here. This one's darker. We'll have to figure out something else to add, but in these light ones I'm going to use some of these really fine shavings. This rim has a very severe crack opening that goes from here down deep in here. I'm going to go ahead and fill this in with some ebony. Going to use some thin CA, and then I'll come back with some medium as we pack this in. So one technique I sometimes employ is to put a little tape on each side of the gap to kind of keep the shavings and dust and the CA confined a little bit. Now I'm just going to kind of wick some of this in. Still may be dry. I'm going to use some very coarse sandpaper to kind of knock the edges back a little bit. Kind of see where the rim is going to be. That's not too bad. I've still got some rough edges, but I'm going to have to cut some of this away anyway, so I think I'll just do a little bit more sanding. That looks like it's giving me a bit of a patch that I can more easily cut with that bowl gouge without worrying about catching that edge and ripping that off. Another question is it going to take longer to try to repair it, patch it, or fix it than it would be to just discard it and throw it all over and start all over again? Can I repurpose the piece? This little birdhouse ornament started off as, I can't remember exactly, I think it was a hollow globe ornament, or it was a coffee scoop that, and I went through the bottom and decided I would just turn it into a little birdhouse ornament. And one of the very important question is, how serious is the crack? Is it a structural flaw that might be a real hazard to work with? Life is short, and I don't want to get myself hurt. That's going to slow me down or stop me from turning, or worse. There's a well-publicized incident where a very skilled wood artist was turning too fast and underestimated the risk to a piece coming apart, and thought just wrapping tape around it would probably handle it, and it didn't. Alright, let's get down to the specifics of how we're going to make some of these repairs. So on this little globe ornament, I've got a couple of hairline cracks along here. There's one here, there's one here, and there's one here. So in order to treat all those cracks, first thing you want to do is you want to put some type of finish that is not going to cause you any problem to protect the surface from penetration of the thin CA into areas that you don't want. So I'm going to come on down here a little ways in case it spills over, and then we're going to give that just a couple of moments to dry. Now what I've decided to do, instead of having that CA drip down the side, I'm going to actually dribble it on the inside where the cracks are and let it penetrate. There's one. There's another. There's that one right there. Got that one. Right there. And that shellac I use, it dries quick, and it'll limit the penetration from that CA from staining the finish. Now I'm just going to sand this up with some 400 grit, and we should be able to. We barely see the cracks, but it should be stronger than it was before, which is what we're after here. Well, I didn't let that shellac dry, and I've made a real mess of it. Okay, I think what I'm going to do is get an alcohol rag and probably try to wipe some of that off. There'll be a link to part 2, which will be a continuation of this video with more techniques and examples of repairs. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you're interested and you're not a subscriber, please subscribe so you won't miss future videos. Y'all stay safe. Come on back here.